For those of you who have not heard the latest news, Square Enix is deciding to release or considering releasing another season pass for Final Fantasy 15. They have also mentioned that they plan on extending Final Fantasy 15 story through 2018. I guess while it's cool to see the story be finished, at the same time, I can't help but feel those bitter feelings, thinking that this really should have. If the story was lacking that bad, they knew that much stuff was cut out. They really should have given it another year or two of development and finished the game and made it feel complete, rather than, treating it like a service.
With basically, I mean, we've spoken at length about this before. It's their new, and I use quotes with, new business model. Their whole games as a service thing, and they're trying to milk everything they can. And you can look at it from two perspectives, I guess. Is one way to look at it is that video games really aren't that expensive in general, and they're trying to maximize what they can out of their one title. So instead of selling you a game for like $100, they sell you a game for $60 and then add this on for 20 and add this on for 20 and so forth. They're trying to make more money off it, obviously, and that's just what it feels like. And honestly, I think this kind of storytelling hurts the game. I haven't completed Final Fantasy 15. I'm actually not even close to completing Final Fantasy 15. But just from what you guys say and from what I hear about the storyline, and I'm going to get a full experience, honestly, because I've waited so long to play the game. But I can imagine you, as someone who played the game when it initially came out, or right around when it initially came out, and then having to go back and play another piece of it, and another piece of it, and another piece of it. To me, I don't think that that could possibly feel like a cohesive story, and that's going to be a drawback to it, in my opinion.
And I mean, that's the one complaint I have about Final Fantasy 15, because what you have is a damn good story. I'm not going to spoil the ending for anybody, but the ending is satisfying. That ending is going to be something that carries on with me to something that I look back at the Final Fantasy series and go, wow, that was a really powerful ending. That was a really well done ending. But it's lore, it's story. It just feels like there's so many things cut, again, to repackage and sell as DLC. I mean, without getting into spoiler content, we've already had episode Gladio released, we've already had episode Prompto released, and we've already had episode Ignis released. Each of those DLCs feel like they're a crucial part to the story and should have been included in the base game. I mean, it would honestly be no different, really, than what they did with Final Fantasy VIII, where you had the assassination mission while Squall and Irvin were going off and doing their own thing up here. Cell, Selphie, and Quistis were making their way through the sewers to shut the gates. I mean, imagine if that was broke up in DLC and how incomplete the game would feel.
Actually, I thought about that too, but I thought about it with a different Final Fantasy game. I was thinking about it with Final Fantasy VI, actually. What if they just took the whole part where your party splits up into 3 groups and just took that out of the game and then came back and said, oh, here you go. Here's what happened to Sabin in his little scenario. Here's what happened to Ben and Edgar and Terra. And here's what happened to Locke in South Figaro. Like, here's the Locke package. Go back and play and see how he met Silas and stuff like that. I could see him doing that with Final Fantasy VI, and it would just feel so awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, and it honestly does in 15. You've completed 15's Power Up. What's your thought on it?
All right, so here's my thing. I mean, it's a little different for me, but I'm right there with you guys. I played the game because, I'm super excited about a Final Fantasy game. I went through all the side quests before even progressing into the story. So like the character development and everything, it went a lot smoother for me because I did everything. You know what I mean? Like I went and I actually developed time with the characters. They had their own side stories or whatever. The vanilla version, anyways. And then I got to the point where, hey, spoiler alert. Well, it's not really, but where Noctis's father dies. But to me, that part was just kind of like, the hell happened? Like that's it. And I'm right there. Like I understand a lot of money went into this game. Developing it. It was Versus 13, and then they had to scrap everything. That was basically, it was almost a finished game. They had to scrap it all and then redo it for the PlayStation 4. I get that content was not going to make it, but I was just happy the game came out. The way they did with the season pass, with episode Gladios, Prompto, and Ignis soon. I guess for me, it's like, okay, I can understand that, but for them to say, oh yeah, we're going to do another season pass, give us more money, and now they're just kind of milking it for all that it's worth, at that point, I'm kind of like, all right, just stop. You got lucky that the game got released, but now I just feel like they're trying to ride on, either they're patching it and they're charging people money to patch it, and it's just, it doesn't make any sense. For me at this point, it's like, all right, the story was there, it was satisfying, at least for the people who beat it. Just leave it and move it on. Use the money that you got from 15, to kind of make a new one, or if not, make a sequel if you want.
I'll add something in here, because you brought up something that I actually want to talk about. Them patching the game and adding new story elements. The latest update that they honestly did, it was really, really good, but it pissed me off, because it was a crucial part to the story that I look at and go, that really should have been added in there, because it changes so many things. It all of a sudden, it's something that should have been explained really in the base game, and I'm not going to go into detail because, again, spoilers, but for those of you watching who have played it, you probably understand what I mean by saying that.
Yeah, you mentioned something really cool. Like, you mentioned something that just catches my attention. It's just that you're right. They started changing stuff, but what I don't like is that now Square Enix is kind of catering to the people. Oh, if they didn't like this part of the story, let's change it and do something different. The way I see it is just the game was released that way. It happened. You can't go and change everything. It's like going in. This is a little more drastic, but like if you went into Star Wars and you changed what the main certain main character did, a small change like that could alter the entire story. Just like make it, it could be totally weird. Like if I didn't like the way I don't know, let's just say I didn't like the way the Jedis died or anything, and I told George Lucas, hey, the Jedi shouldn't have died that way or something. And he goes back and changes, like, oh, well, none of the Jedis died. Or, like, some kind of event like that. I think making changes to the story that it shouldn't be done, the way they're doing it, They're just changing a lot of things. Because then it just changes the entire premise of what the future would hold for the story, or the way the story plays out.
And, really the latest update, it didn't... don't get the idea that they're actually going in and changing story elements, because they're not. They're just adding things in there that should have been really added in there in the first place. Yeah. Like all of a sudden, the character's motives make more sense with that particular scene than what it did in the original game.
Yeah, it's weird. I guess just having to go back and play through the game, and just knowing, oh, there's a new update, I have to play through it a fifth time, or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just.
And what's your thoughts on there, Nom? Where you haven't completed the game, how do you feel about that?
Like it's gonna be harder for me to get the same feel for it that you had it, because I'm gonna get it the way the latest release of it, so the latest version with all the additives to it. So I might have almost a completely different outlook on the storyline based on that, which could be good, I guess, could be bad. I guess the whole point here, and I'm starting to feel like Square's announcement about the change to their business model, the games as a service thing, was almost damage control in preparation towards this. Like they knew they were going to make this announcement, so they made that announcement to kind of get us used to it, get us used to the ideas, so that maybe this one wouldn't hit as hard, because we all know that this whole thing is about money to begin with, right? So I feel like they did that. But again, like I don't know. I might come up with a completely, totally different experience from this game than you guys have after playing it with everything that might be added or taken away or whatever, what have you. It's it's just crazy though. You know, I like the Star Wars reference there. Would you take out Jar Jar Binks?
Oh hell yes. Oh yeah. Or better yet, I would have just had him be the Sith Lord like that theory was. It would have been a perfect plot twist, but just he's a terrible character. I don't know why. Like, I can't watch Star Wars Episode 1 because of him. I'll put it that way. And Star Wars Episode 1 is really good for what it is, but with him in there is just... You're going to get me going on something right there, nomdee. We're going to be here for hours. But no, yeah, I understand your point, Nom, that freaking you're gonna get a totally different experience than the people that bought the game, you know, at launch. It's gonna be completely different for you. It's probably gonna be a better experience, but it just sucks for people who have bought the game already, and we have to sit there and play it through another time. You know what I mean?
Right. And I can empathize with that. Just with this particular game, it's not gonna happen for me. It's you guys that are really getting the bum end of the deal.
And I mean, I felt that way going through Chapter 12 because Chapter 12 was not one of my favorite chapters.
Oh god!
And when I found it was out in 12, I'm like, oh gosh, Chapter 12 again.
Yeah. Out of all the chapters, it had to be Chapter 12. You're just like, ugh. But yeah. Anyway, I just hope that eventually, like right now, I haven't played Final Fantasy. Like I stopped playing it with all these updates. I'm gonna just wait another year, then play it through again. And hopefully I come out with a better experience. You know what I mean? Like I said, at this point, I'm just happy the game came out. Really, that's all I appreciate. I really appreciate it. But as far as, like, you know, they keep on updating it. It's good and all, it's free. But with them saying, oh, yeah, we're going to add more story content for another season pass, I'm just kind of like, no.
And that might be how you just have to play these games going forward, you know? Their true release date's not until the final content patch or what have you.
Yeah,
that's the real interesting thing.
Eventually, it's gonna come and bite them in the butt. You know, people aren't gonna put up with this.
I was gonna say at that point, if that's the way they're going to release their games, that's when I'm going to look at Square Enix and say, yeah, screw you, I'm done with your series. Take it, shove it up your ass.
And I know
I ain't gonna put up with that bullshit.
The very large elephant in the room with all of this is Final Fantasy VII. Because this business model is being implemented now, you have to wonder if the development cycle of Final Fantasy VII is already being affected by this. And this is a game that I'm going to venture to say most of the people who are going to play Final Fantasy VII know what the story of Final Fantasy VII is. And if you already know what the story of Final Fantasy VII is, I don't think you're going to take too well to this being Swiss cheesed, to this being broken up into parts or broken up into different DLCs and that sort of thing, which I can almost assure you it's going to be. And it's going to have a very profound effect on whether or not that game is successful or not. I honestly believe that because it's going to be rough to see what happens with Final Fantasy VII. I think it's going to break a lot of hearts, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both watched my response to your video, right, Nom, through its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing I said, like, there's a smart way to do the DLC, the episodes and DLC through Final Fantasy VII, and then there would be a stupid way. The stupid way would just be to cut up the chunks of stories, turn around and sell it as extra DLC, turn around and break it up in certain parts where it didn't need to be broken up. The smart way would be able to do it would be to take the opportunity and expand on the story a little bit. Put us in the shoes of Rude and Reno. Give us a chance to play through them. Maybe give us a DLC talking about, you know, showing us the turmoil that Aerith went through as she went to the city of the Ancients to use the holy materia to summon it forth to destroy Meteor, and the turmoil and how scared she must have been knowing that these were going to be the final moments of her life.
Right. Yeah, and that's a very intelligent way to look at it too.
Spoiler alert.
Show us the stuff that we didn't see. Yeah, show us the stuff that we didn't see in Final Fantasy VII, and then we can, you know, it wouldn't feel like it messed with the cohesion of the game and all.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really skeptical on how this one's going to turn out. with that new business model. I just don't. I don't want to see Final Fantasy VII turn into a Final Fantasy 15. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. None of us do.
No, because I mean the story for Final Fantasy VII. I don't know like how you guys feel, but for me, I feel like that story is just it's flawless. You know, it's like you have rivalry between characters. You have like the fate of the world is at hands. Like I thought everything was executed so well in that game, just the way everyone interacts with each other, and just for what it held. I just don't want to see any of that content cut out. I'm already accepting it that some content might have to be cut out, but for them to sell it as DLC, I don't know. Like I just don't know. I just don't want them selling main plot points as DLC, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And that's where I get into the territory of there's really stupid ways to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're gonna be episodic, one thing Nom you mentioned in your video I could see happening. I feel like there's 4 crucial places that they could break the game up. I can see them possibly making an episode on Midgar alone, which is fine. I feel like that could explain the story a little bit better, give us more of a connection between Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse. That's completely fine. Really the end of disc. The end of disc 1 would be a great place to stop it. Break it off where the discs ended, basically. That's the way I feel like they should go about the episodic content.
Yeah, if that's how they're going to do it, then I would like to see something like that. Yeah, I really feel like I don't know why. I just get the feeling that Midgar is going to be its own game, and in Midgar that's probably encompasses maybe 5% of the total game in the original.
Yeah.
I'm sure they could find ways to stretch it out. They could start it earlier. They could start it from with his final moments with Zack. They could start it there, kind of right at the end of
Crisis Core.
Crisis Core, yeah.
Which we need
started right
an
there,
HD
something
remake
like that.
or something.
How did Cloud get to Midgar? How did he meet back up with Tifa and that sort of thing? They could expand upon that a little bit. And I just feel like your battle with I'm stuttering here. Your battle with Rufus and then the subsequent bike chase scene, I could just see at them amping that up to be more of a finale than what it was in the original game, and kind of making that the complete package.
Yeah.
Making that the complete package of one video game. I could see them doing that.
I would be okay with that. I really would. I mean, Midgar was kind of one of those sections that it was a slog to get through. But if they could add a little bit more detail in there, give that little bit backstory, things, it would be interesting to replay that.
But they're gonna have to expand on Shinra and the original president, and maybe more of his shadiness and his evilness. They need to make him more of a prevalent character than he was in the original, if they're gonna handle it that way. Because we gotta hate him more. Rufus, as kind of a bad guy in Final Fantasy VII, after a certain point, you didn't really give a damn about him, You just didn't really care. So they would have to make those two characters seem a little more sinister than they came across in the game. Not that they weren't sinister to some degree, but it wasn't enough to make them the main villain of a plot. So I think they could.
Good. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, that's pretty much all I had with that.
I was going to say, for the fact of, we didn't even know Rufus was alive until Adam and Children. And it's like, oh, surprise! He's not really dead.
Yeah, he's just there to bring Sephiroth back. Which was pretty cool, but... yeah, I don't know. This Final Fantasy VII thing, I'm like thinking about it, and I feel like my head's going to explode. Just worrying. But
who knows how far we are away from it anyways.
Take your time, Square. Take your time.
You got one shot at the Square. You screw it up, you might as well as close up. You might as well as close up shop and stop making the Final Fantasy series, because you ain't recovering from this if you screw up Final Fantasy VII. It's game over.
Sadly, I have to agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.